Welcome to another episode of the Plutus Awards Podcast. Our community is filled with hundreds of stories from creators and entrepreneurs just like you. And through the show, we share these stories of challenges and successes, from bloggers to podcasters to writers, speakers, and more. Today's guest is Paul Vasey, a former high school teacher and founder of Cash Crunch Games, a company who has a mission to gamify personal finance to help future generations make smarter money decisions, understand the value of money, and save first before spending. We talk about the mission that led to Paul founding Cash Crunch Games. You'll be able to hear the passion in his voice, trust me. Why he sold his main product, and the emotional journey he went through, and why he's grateful for the experience. Let's dive right into my conversation with Paul. Hey Paul, welcome to the show. Really excited to have you on today.
Hi Sarah, good to see you.
I would like to have you share the origin story of Cash Crunch Games, if you will, and what the purpose or the vision that you have for it is.
Sure. So a couple of chapters ago in my life, I was a school teacher. And what I realized was that when I was teaching, there was a number of ways to teach and teach effectively. And one of the ways was by creating activities, because I realized that, and there's a lot of words that are thrown out now with gamification and experiential learning, and they're all buzzwords, but they are true words. They come from an origin, i.e. the classroom. And what I realized was that if you made a story and you made it about your student, they will buy into it and it will enhance their understanding and their learning. If you imagine, I don't know if this is PC or not, but I once saw an advert with two old women on either side of a fence who were neighbors, and all they did was gossip all day long. And it amazed me in this interview. And then I listened to my mother and my aunt and my grandma and everybody else. And the fact that they had so much information, and they knew exactly what had happened in a story, because they said, well, when I said this and he said that, how do they remember all this? And it was because they'd made a story out of it and they'd made it personal. So then when I was in the classroom, and we were taught to make the content as much about them as possible for the buy-in, but you always added in an extra story. And that's what I did. And how I got into the game side of it, and what made me think about Cash Crunch Games, was that I always realized that kids were struggling with math. They were very, very intimidated by math. And I had to teach math for a year, and I understood why. It's because of the way it's taught. But what it was that I was teaching them my business class. And, you would do marketing, and they would package it, come up with a name for a cookie and a flavor and who they're going to sell to and the price and, and all that good stuff. And then you go, right, now we're going to get the workforce together and who we're going to hire and blah, 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 blah. And then I said, right, kids, now we're going to do finance. And they said, I can't do it, sir. I said, what do you mean you can't do it? And they said, it's math, sir. I said, hang on, you use math and money every day. So what's the issue? Oh, no, I just can't do it. And I found that there was a big issue with confidence and intimidation. And going back to the way the teaching of the math is that they go through the textbook twice really quickly, rather than going through it bit by bit slowly to make sure they understand the concept and do it. So what I did is I got a Monopoly board and I ripped it, and I basically changed the properties to businesses. So I got the jewelry store, the supermarket, the car dealership, pharmacy, and all these things, and I made it up. And I gave it to these kids, and I said, it's like you play Monopoly. I'm not going to give you any other input into how you play it. Just do it. Whatever comes out of it, great. So they started playing it, and then one kid wanted to buy, I think it was the car dealership, and he didn't have enough money. And he said, oh, man, this is $7,000 or whatever, $70,000, whatever it was. And they said, well, I haven't got enough money. He said, well, the other kid said, I'll go in with you on that. So the next minute they're saying, well, okay, how much do you put in? I've got 7, you've got 3, that's 10,000, right? Now it's a 70-30 split. And I said, when the money comes in, this is this, and we're going to share their expenses. And I was just watching this, and I'm thinking, guys, do you not realize you're talking business and money and math without you realizing? So when you get money, how much do you get? Well, we get this much per customer. I said, that's income/revenue. So let's talk about this. So now, how much revenue do you get from each customer? Oh, we get this much. So now what I was doing is I was building on, and then same with expenses when they were saying, well, what money do you have to pay out? Well, we have this, our rent to pay each month. Well, that's a fixed cost. And then you've got a variable cost. Okay, so now all of a sudden I'm now talking to them about income, revenue, fixed expenses, variable expenses, profit, net profit, and then we're even mentioning tax. So this all came out in a game in just discussions and then not realizing that they knew all this. But the problem was they just didn't know the associated words. They understood the concepts. And this is what drives me crazy when they say, well, everybody's financially illiterate. Well, ask them a question that they don't understand the words. And of course, they're not going to be financially literate. But if you actually say to them, do you have to borrow money to buy a house? Yes. All right. What's that called? Well, I don't know because no one's told me. But you understand that it's actually a loan. So they're not as financially as illiterate as everyone's making out. It's just that they don't know the words. So this is what the games did, is it allowed them to connect the words to the concept, and you made it about them, and then they were able to explain it. So that was a whole process. So once I arrived in the US, I had two choices. I either go back into teaching or I start making these games. And I was really fired up about the games. And I had an entrepreneurship game, which was that one I was just telling you about with a Monopoly / game. And then I thought, well, no, I actually want to teach personal finance because I realized that there was a huge disconnect between money and math. And there was like $1.4 trillion of student debt, and people were spending more than they actually had. But there was a lot of stuff like they're being offered credit cards and they were running up debts. And it's quite shameful on a lot of sides in terms of you got the student that's going to college who's trying to better themselves, and they're getting absolutely nailed by tuition fees. They're getting nailed through their ignorance and then through trying to make money in terms of here's a credit card, here's a store card. And then there's the marketing side of you've got to have this, everybody. Don't miss out with the old FOMO and everything else. So these kids go through a bad mind space and just trying to figure things out, but yet they're kind of being taken advantage of in every single direction, rightly or wrongly. I mean, I know business has got to make money, schools have got to make money, you've got to pay bills, everyone's got to pay bills. And then you've got this little student who's going to college and he's really excited about being in college, but then he's going, whoa, it's like being at the casino. You know, everything's free. Bring it on, bring it on. I don't even think about paying it back. And it just stacks up. And then there's your good old friend of compound interest and, you know, all that stuff. I got into the game. So in the end, I made a physical game. And then I realized that physical games were not really the way to go. So I started making an online game, which was Cash Crunch 101, which then addressed all these things from what I had learned in the classroom, what I'd spoken to with students, and then just the idea that how to handle money. Because I mean, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it's fantastic. Don't get me wrong, right? And it's all about getting out the rat race and passive income and everything else. But it drives me crazy in America because it's all about the stock market investing. But guess what? If I don't have $1 left at the end of the month, how the hell am I supposed to invest? It's just absolutely bonkers. Like, give me, hey, you're a learner driver and here's the keys for a Ferrari. Go and drive it. And by the way, it's stick. Oh, I've never seen a stick car before. You know, it's just bonkers. So in the end, it was like, hang on, let's teach these kids to handle their money first, save first, spend later. And then you can get into investing and getting your passive income and beating the rat race. So I decided to make a board game pre-Rich Dad, Poor Dad, because I figured that's what was missing. And if kids understood that before they went to college, they'd make smarter decisions. So they're coming out with less debt from college, and then they're not held down by, I can't go for this job, I can't move to this part of the country because I'm in so much debt. I mean, 90% of all arguments are caused by money. So let's eliminate those issues and let's get the kid onto the right career path and enjoying life, not weighed down with debt, and let's teach them smarter money decisions. So that's why that game came out, and that's how Cash Crunch Games was basically born.
Yeah. So I do have to say you sound very passionate about this and your business, which was great. And from that passion, it sounds like you have a very clear vision of where you wanted this business to go when you first started. So tell me a bit about what that vision is.
Well, the vision was obviously to make a game, and then you would believe that naturally teachers are going to take it and they're going to run with it and it's going to be a nationwide success, build it and they will come. But then, we know that's not true. And we know there's certain people have certain ideas and money talks, and that other people make things as well, whether it's as good or as bad. I don't, some things aren't quite there, but whoever sells the best wins. So you end up getting all this stuff into all the other schools. So mine didn't take off as the way I wanted it to take off. And trying to get schools to adopt to this, I mean, it's a no-brainer once they understood and go, wow, this is great, once they got to it. But it was getting past the gatekeepers, getting the teachers time to actually take this on board. And the other big issue with personal finance was that I have spoken to so many schools about, do you teach personal finance? Well, I think someone in chemistry teaches it. I think someone in geography teaches it. I'm like, it's personal finance, it's money, it's everyday skills. But like in the UK, they have a dedicated citizenship lesson every Friday for an hour, which was in our school, which covers sex, drugs, rock and roll, and money. Basically, everything you could think of, right? But it was life skills. So you knew that if you rang up a school and you said, can I speak to someone in citizenship? You would get that teacher who would cover personal finance. But here in the States, it's not mandated that anyone teach personal finance. So it's whoever's got space on their roster for teaching gets to teach personal finance, or just happens to throw a little bit into math or social science. So that was the other issue, was trying to find the right person to champion that in their school, which has been an absolute nightmare. And hence why FinCon's played a wonderful part in all this, and the Plutus and everything else. They've done a great job in pushing personal finance and finance in general into the States and more awareness. And we still need a lot more work doing, but we're getting there. So that was the big issue. But the vision was every kid in high school should play this game to get into the idea of handling money, learning to save first, to build later, so that they can make smarter decisions as they move through life. That was my vision.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think in schools, there's a lot of administrative roadblocks, of course. I am curious, were you the only one really that was doing the marketing, or was there someone else that you had hired?
No, it was just me. And that's a big error. And one of the big things I've learned a lot over this time, I mean, I did get someone to help me a little bit with Instagram. I did a course on Instagram, and I did a couple of little things, but it wasn't enough. One thing I found is that you can have a really rubbish product, but if you have really good marketing, you're going to be a success. And you can have the best products on the market, but no marketing, no one knows about you. Unfortunately, that's the problem. So ultimately, there's a lot of rubbish products out there that just missed the mark. And there's been people, Billy from accounting's created a game for you, but he's never been in a classroom. And it's just like, you've missed the point of how kids learn, but yet that does really well. And that's what everybody takes on board. We've all come across really rubbish products. Like, how the hell has this got here? The secret is marketing, basically. I didn't have the money, and for it, it's chicken and the egg, isn't it? I mean, money makes the world go round, and I didn't have the money, or I didn't feel that I had the money to spend on marketing, which is actually a very short-sighted thing. So I've been kicking myself for quite a while, and I've got sore shins from the amount of times I kicked myself. So that was one of my big lessons.
Okay. I think that's many people. I don't think you're alone in the challenges and the struggles of marketing, especially with one-person business. So it sounds like the frustrations of doing this essentially by yourself led to the conclusion that you may want a partner. So tell me a bit about that decision.
Yeah, I realized that me, myself, and my split personalities wouldn't get me anywhere. So I ended up I just figured that the best way to do this was to improve on what people have currently had, or find something that was a really good fit for other companies. I was looking at different companies and going to them and saying, hey, this will really help you. And then as an entrepreneur, because you've been looking at the problem, you think that this is the answer and this is going to help them. But if they're not been thinking about it, or it's not in their wheelhouse, they're not even going to, what are you talking about? This is not going to help us. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are like knocking on their going, are you idiots? Can you not see what we are offering here? But really, that's because we're self-absorbed in fixing an issue that they haven't even thought about. We're like a year ahead of them in terms of thinking, and that's what's happened. So you have to really be thinking specifically about who you can really add value to, but also in your space, rather than thinking, oh, I'm an insurance company and I've got this app that can do this, this, this. And they're going, what's that going to do with me? I don't really care. We're just doing this. A lot of corporate are not paid to think. They're paid to just do their little role rather than thinking about going across all different departments. And I think that's the big thing about being an entrepreneur and being in small, is that you're looking across all departments. Whereas if you're in a big company and you're just marketing, you're not looking at finance and HR and production or anything else. And that's the big disconnect, which I'm finding with lots of, when you go after the big boys, they're not there to think for you that way. You've got to plant a seed. It takes 2 or 3 years to get a meeting and then move it. So you've got to find those special moments. And I actually cornered the CEO of the company, and they were looking for a budget game at the time, but I actually cornered him and said, you will see this presentation. You will look at this. And I told him exactly why it's going to benefit his company. And luckily we aligned, and he was looking at the time for that. And if he hadn't been, nothing would have happened. It's interesting. Timing's a lot about it as well.
And so did you want to sell it? Was that even anything that was in your kind of vision in terms of how this would evolve?
I wanted to have a partnership, and I literally was like, let's just have a partnership and let's have a royalty agreement or something, and let's have it for generations, and let's keep doing it and I'll keep helping. But then I got the business 101 lesson, and it was a comment the guy made, and he was bang on with this. He was absolutely right with this. He said, well, this is going to cost me a lot of money because we're going to have to remake this game to fit our platform and build it up for scalability and everything. So I'm going to end up putting money in here as well. And what happens if me and you wake up one morning and don't like the look of each other, and we have an argument and we walk away? Does that mean I've lost all my money and all my efforts with my marketing and everything else? I said, well, I guess, or maybe not. I don't know. He says, so that's why I want to buy you and give you a 3-year deal. I don't want to have this where every morning I wake up and go, oh, what am I dealing with today? Have you fallen? Are we still friends? And can we still work together? Or is it all in vain? So basically, he wanted to limit his risk. That took me down a pathway of, it's my baby. And you always want, as a parent, you always want the best for your child or whatever. So I want the best, and I want this to hit its potential. And I can't do that on my own. So I sold. And the reason why I sold was because these guys will take it further than I could ever take it. It will be evolving. And also, it allows me to do other things. I'm not a one idea wonder. I've got more and more ideas. And also it can be second and third generations of this, iterations of this down the road. It was bittersweet. Let's just say that. It was bittersweet. What the most difficult part of it was when you sell it, you lose the rights to it. And it was remade, and there were things made in it that were brilliant. And there were things that I didn't like. And I still disagree to this day because it's not my style. But I lost all rights to that when I handed it over. That's the hardest thing, but you've just got to know that the net gain on what I had with my game is going to change more lives than if I'd done it myself. Because this company was already in schools. This company was already doing conferences and speaking to the teachers, and it already had brand recognition. So that's what swayed it for me.
So it boils down to, are you willing to hold on to your baby just because you want control, or was the vision or your goal of reaching masses of students more important? Yeah. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. I mean, I'm not motivated by money as such. Sure, I need to keep my lights on, but I don't get up in the morning and check my bank account every day. I just don't. It just doesn't appeal to me. Being a background as a teacher as well, I wanted to make that difference, and I knew there was a big issue. So for me, knowing that this company is going to take my product and push it out there further and further and wider field and make a difference and address the issues of students are having now, that for me means more. Yeah, for the benefit of the product moving forward. Yeah, definitely. Because ultimately, what I can do down the road is, let's say I come out with a course or something, I can jump on the back of that as the creator of the budget game or whatever, or because I'm on terms with the CEO, I can pitch more ideas and jump in that and have a conveyor belt of more products down that way. So you're sacrificing your product and knowing that you're doing the best better for the good. And I've also got other things that can follow it down the line.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, Paul, what's next for you, and where can everyone find you now and the awesome things that you're doing?
Okay, I've got a couple of things on the boil. I've just created a new website called Connector Games, and basically it's a card game. Think flashcards with a twist. A lot of kids right now, they're taught to think in one direction and not being able to link other things together. So they'll think about finance, but they won't think about human resources or marketing or whatever. So I created a game that brings all of this together in a card game. So basically, I've gamified flashcards. So we've got first aid, music, math, employability skills. So employability and career soft skills kind of things, and personal finance. That's my main thing with education. And then I'm involved with a couple of other little things and just helping people out. Yeah, so Connector Games is my new one. So I've still got Cash Crunch games going with a physical board game for ages 5 to 12, teaching them the fundamentals of what my 101 did in terms of saving first, spending later. And then I've got this card game going as well, which ultimately will become an online game so they can learn on the go.
Awesome, Paul. Thank you so much for all these insights and for being on the show.
No, thank you. And thanks for the time to listen. I'm glad you didn't fall asleep. So that's all good.
Let's take a look at some lessons we can learn from my conversation with Paul. Lesson number 1, marketing is just as important, if not more, as developing a great product. So what I mean by that is figuring how to position your business or product or service as you're developing it. You want to keep your audience in mind, the words that they use, their viewpoints, what really makes them tick when you are marketing to them. It is also important, as Paul found out, to talk to companies or schools that are going to put your products in front of the people that matter. And so for him, he had learned many, many lessons in terms of figuring out just because he had a really great board game doesn't mean that he's going to be able to get it out to the masses. So as you are launching your own product or business, or whether you're a few years into the game, think about how you can continue to evolve your marketing efforts. Lesson number 2 is to work towards the vision of your business and don't be attached to a specific outcome. For example, Paul really wanted to hold on to Cash Crunch Games, the board game, and for him to be the one to distribute it to the masses. And as you can tell in my interview with him, is that he ended up selling that game to another company, and it is now being spread to the masses more than he could have if he had done it by himself. And so for him, in his words, he air quotes, sacrificed his baby, his product, in order to carry on his vision. And he really has no regrets about it. Lesson number 3 is to remember why you started your business in the first place. So at the beginning of my conversation with Paul, you heard about how passionate he was when he started Cash Crunch Games. And at the end, he talked about it's not always about the money. It is about a mission that he really wanted to fulfill. Now, of course, money is important. You want to be able to pay the bills and all of those things. So when you are thinking about your business, why you started it, think about the mission, think about the vision in addition to the money. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and thank you so much for listening to the Plutus Awards Podcast. If you're interested in collaborating with other financial bloggers, podcasters, influencers, and more to chat about your work, interests, ask and answer questions, come join our Facebook community. Search for Plutus Community in the search bar or head to facebook.com/groups/Plutus Community. We hope to see you there and get a chance to support you and your amazing work.